Most Honorable Edward Philip George Seaga served in this House, in these very benches, representing the people of Western Kingston for 42 years. Add to that 3 prior years in the Legislative Council. He is the longest serving parliamentarian in Jamaica and indeed the Caribbean region. He served the people of Jamaica in this House as Minister of Development and Welfare, Minister of Finance and Planning, Leader of the Opposition, and ultimately Prime Minister and Minister of Defense. It is appropriate that we now, who have the privilege to sit in this House, mark our respect, not only for his long service, which is a feat worthy of honor of itself, but more so the depth of love, loyalty, and generosity of his heart, of wisdom, creativity, and diligence of his mind. Of strength, courage, and conviction of his leadership, and of passion, commitment, and sacrifice of his service. Edward, the eldest child of Philip and Erna Seaga, was always an inquiring mind. His parents were not sure what to make of his interest in book learning. Nevertheless, they gathered the funds needed for him to study overseas at the renowned Harvard College, followed by enrollment in the University College of the West Indies to study medicine, which he would later abandon. Didn't like the sight of blood. To pursue his true passion in the social and anthropological sciences. This led him to Buxton Town, where he lived with the people and studied their culture. That time spent among the people is what he always valued beyond measure, as it enabled him to see what he had read about take shape, and it in turn shaped the many contributions he would go on to make to Jamaican life as we know it. His was a deeper understanding of the culture of the people. He understood their rhythm and thinking, but he also understood their dreams and aspirations. No doubt his experience in Buxton Town would have led him to write the Haves and the Have-Not treatise when he became a member of the Legislative Council at the age of 29. It would have also influenced his life passion to properly document, indeed curate, Jamaican culture, artifacts, art, and music. In many ways, he introduced Jamaicans to their culture. He brought Jamaican culture out of the dark and obscure into the light of the mainstream to stand side by side with colonial culture. Thereby giving definition to who we are as a people. And getting us to accept what we create as being valuable. He did this through his accomplishments with institutions dedicated to the promotion and preservation of our culture, such as Jamaica Festival. He did this through his West India Records Limited. And he discovered many of our artists, performers, and craftsmen. He once told me of the story of how he first met Capo. He said when he met Capo, Capo was using a penknife to carve lignum vitae. And for those of you who know lignum vitae, it must have been a very sharp penknife. And he was so impressed with the raw talent of Capo that they struck up a great friendship, and he sought to expose Capo and to guide Capo. On one occasion, the police raided Capo's home and took away his art for no good reason. He appealed to Mr. Seaga, who interceded on his behalf, and the intercession was really to explain to the powers that be that these things that you have taken are of value. Of course, they were returned. Thankfully so. Today, Capo's work would rank amongst the most expensive pieces in any collection. And this story illustrates how Mr. Seaga bridged the two Jamaicas. Edward Seaga is without question one of the fathers of the nation. He was central in the campaign to leave the Federation. He was a framer of our Constitution, and he did tremendous work in advancing legislation to create the Charter of Rights. He shaped our banking sector and financial sector, our urban development, our training and education system, our tourism and agriculture. In fact, there is scarcely any area of national life that he did not either initiate, shape, or advance in some way. We who have benefited from the knowledge of his existence and facts of his deeds can say without contradiction that were it not for the strength of character and courage of his conviction, Jamaica would have proceeded along a path which we now understand today to be undesirable. During Hurricane Gilbert, no one could question his firm marshalling of the national effort towards a speedy recovery. There is no question about his skillful and diligent management of the economy to return to growth after the 70s and after various external commodity price shocks in the mid-80s. Yet, for these very strong qualities, he was misunderstood and often misrepresented. He was very much conscious of this, and in later life took great care to document his work and contribution. Our tributes today offer a great opportunity to put Mr. Seaga in true context. I had the opportunity to work with Mr. Seaga in his private business and in politics. He was a thorough man, and he took the nation's business seriously. Every parliamentary presentation was fully researched. Oftentimes, I was the researcher. Budget presentations were prepared like mini theses. I recall one such preparation session where we had so many books, so many source materials that we had to spread them out on his very large conference room table, and indeed we ended up putting them on the floor. It was all very confusing, and Mr. Seaga came up with a way to organize all the reference material for ease of access to the various data and statistics that he would want to quote in his budget presentation. But after a few attempts, it became clear that the method to organize the books was not efficient, wasn't working properly. And so he turned to me and he said, Andrew, who came up with this idea? There is madness in this method. I also had the opportunity to see him on his feet in Parliament. I cannot recall a time in Parliament when he was exercising his parliamentary craft, when he was other than statesmanlike. In fact, even when he was strident, it was done with the highest level of respect. This is an example we should all seek to emulate. Mr. Seaga was a kind man. He was kind to me personally. He took me as a youngster under his wing. He gave me exposure, opportunity, and guidance. In later years, he would be a wealth of advice and support. When we won the 2016 election, he made it a point of duty to step up on that stage and associate with the victory. He dearly loved his party, and he truly believes that the political organization that he led and which I now lead can end poverty in Jamaica and lead this country to prosperity. He would often say that this country has too much going for it, too many resources available to it to be a poor country. And that I also believe dearly myself. The Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey once said, "Death is the end of all life in the individual or thing, if physical, the crumbling of the body into dust from whence it came. He who lives not upright dies completely in the crumbling of the physical body. But he who lives well transforms himself from that which is mortal to immortal." I believe these are true words for Mr. Seaga. He, in fact, spearheaded the repatriation of the body of Marcus Garvey to Jamaica and is naming as our national hero. As his body will crumble, as all our bodies will, but his work and this upright living will be indelibly marked on the history of Jamaica. And therefore, as long as Jamaica exists, Edward Philip George Seaga will exist. Let me take this opportunity to thank his family for lending him to us, often at your own expense and time. But at this moment, you can be satisfied that he worked very hard in building this nation, and we are eternally grateful. May his soul rest in peace and light eternal shine upon him.
Amen.